solution number 2. Let's just read this. You have to read it carefully. So we're going to use the quadratic formula, or part of it, to determine if the parabola will have 1 x-intercept, 2 x-intercepts, or 0 x-intercepts. And also, tell me if they're going to be rational numbers or irrational numbers. So I don't really care about what the solution is. I care about how many solutions you're going to have. And we know that if we have no solution, it's because we end up with a square root of a negative number. So as far as the quadratic formula is concerned, I'm going to go back and look at that. There's a lot we know about this. But what we had said in class, it's this part that tells us about the number of solutions we have and the kind of solutions, because we can't take the square root of a negative. So I'm just going to focus on that part. I'm just gathering information about what's going on here. So I'm going to have the square root of, well, b squared. 3 squared is 9, minus 4 times 1 times negative 1. And I'm going to use my calculator, and that's going to tell me I'm going to have the square root of 13. Now, the square root of 13 is a number, but the square root of 13 is definitely a very messy number. That's an irrational number. So if I was going to use my quadratic formula, I'm going to have the opposite of b, right, negative 3 plus this number, and negative 3 minus that number, right? It's still a number. So I'm going to have two solutions, right, 2 x-intercepts here, but they are going to be irrational, messy, needing a calculator, because square root of 13 is messy. I'm going to do the same thing for b. So I'm just going to look at the square root part. b squared minus 4ac. Negative 3 squared is 9, minus 4 times 2 times 10. And what I can see already is that this is going to be 9 minus, in fact, I know that that's 80. So I'm going to have a negative inside the square root. I cannot take the square root of a negative number. So this tells me I'm going to have no x-intercepts, right? No solutions. And we'll do the same thing for c. So I'm going to have the square root of b squared minus 4ac. I know that negative 12 squared is 144, minus 4 times 9 times 4. I'm going to drag out my calculator. 144 minus 4 times 9 times 4 gives me a 0. So if I was going to use the quadratic formula, I would have the opposite of b plus or minus 0 over 2 times a. Whether I have 12 plus 0 or 12 minus 0, it gives me the same thing. It gives me a 12. So I'm only going to have one x-intercept here. And the other thing I can see is that what I'm left with, 12 over 18, that's not a messy decimal. It's a fraction, but it's a rational number. And again, at this point, I don't care what that number is, but what I do care about is that you know that 12 over 18 is rational.